Today, I'm going to talk to you about the Big Bang, from theory to reality. It took 13 billion years for the universe to form. We had slightly less time to form the Rockport universe. For those of you that don't know anything about Rockport, Rockport is a US-based comfort footwear brand. We're best known for our men's shoes. But as you can see from the lovely shoes I'm wearing today, our women's shoes are quickly catching up. I hope you're all sitting comfortably, because I have a story I'd like to tell you. Once upon a time, in July 2015, Adidas sold the Rockport brand. And yes, I did say Adidas correctly. You can ask anybody who's outside of the US. Rockport was purchased by a private equity firm and by New Balance. And the Transition Service Agreement, lovingly referred to in our building as the TSA, was born. This allowed Rockport to stay on all of Adidas and New Balance systems, in all of their facilities, and utilizing all of their back office functions for a limited 2-year period, at the end of which the cord would be ceremoniously cut, and we would need to be on all of our own systems, in all of our own buildings, and operating all of our own back office functions. Our very own Big Bang. So what does that mean? It meant that we had to carve out all of the Rockport brands from 2 footwear giants where they had been happily entrenched for a number of years, into our own standalone companies globally. North America is our largest market. It's also our most complex market. It's where also our global headquarters is based. All of our product is designed there, our engineering teams are there, our global sourcing functions were there. So we knew we had to start in North America. The North America part of the journey had to take only 1 year. At which point, within that year, we had to try and determine how many systems that we needed to run the global operation as well as North America. What functions we needed for our back office, so we had to hire all those employees. We had to set up our own global supply chain, as well as also find somewhere to live. The key point here is we had to do all of that at the same time. Something in our industry nobody had ever attempted before. So here I am, the brand new COO. I know no one's ever attempted it and stuck the landing in our industry before. I've got less than 11 months at this point to get this done. North America is our largest market. It's our most important market. Because it's our global headquarters, we were also responsible for determining some of the structure of these things, such as global purchasing, global supply chain. Anybody, and I do mean anybody with a brain, would say run for the hills. Just to make sure there's no confusion, whilst I am a runner, that picture isn't actually of me. I didn't want any of you to be confused. Whilst I might like it to be, it actually isn't. So why didn't I run for the hills? In fact, I ran towards this opportunity, which probably says something about what I was saying earlier around stupidity. Well, I love a challenge. I like complexity, and quite frankly, I saw it as a giant jigsaw puzzle. When I was very first asked this question as to why would I take such a complex role, the truthful answer was, I thought it was easier than my last job. I was the COO of a foreign-owned footwear company, where let's just say they were, I think, highly entrepreneurial is the polite way of saying that. Decisions were made thick and fast every single day, and so the ability to plan ahead was somewhat limited. And I'm not being critical, I truly love that company, I miss that team every day, they were epic. But at Rockport, we were going to be all about the planning, right? So it was going to be easier. But I know what you're all thinking. I can see it in some of your faces, just reality had to set in at one point, right? And it did. English people actually can't skate. It's why we've not been placed at the Olympics since 1994. And we've never actually even attempted to land the triple luds. Personally speaking, I don't even own a pair of skates, and I absolutely can't skate. So what was I thinking? Well, here I am. So what happens? Well, obviously I buy skates. That's the first order of business. But then I put my big girl pants on and set to work. So the first few months of the role really were death by 1,000 questions. Every single day in determining how are we going to run this business? What IT systems did we need? How many people did we need? How are we going to operate some of these global functions? And lastly, but most importantly, where are we going to put all these people? In the 21st century, IT rules us all, as you've just heard from Kurt. So we had to start there. But where did we actually start? Well, we literally started by counting all of the systems that Adidas and New Balance currently operated the Rockport brands on. And it totaled 162, and they all did something. But we had to determine how many we needed. And so we went back to our fundamental questions. How do we want to operate Rockport as a standalone company? How do we want to get goods from origin? How are we going to invoice our customers? And remember, we're owned by private equity, so how are we going to collect the cash? As a standalone company, we also knew our business needs wouldn't be as complex. And so some of the periphery systems that Adidas and New Balance used, we knew we didn't need. We also wanted to keep it simple. And we had that luxury, which is so unusual. We were building our very own universe. So we were starting from zero. So we got to make all of those choices. That discovery process took about 3 months. And we landed on needing 14 new systems. A new POS system for all of our retail stores. A new PLM system, product lifecycle management system, where all our shoes are born and reside for the period of their life. A new B2B system, a portal where all of our independent customers could see the inventory live and order from us directly. And a new ERP system. Just to add an element of difficulty to the dive, we actually chose SAP FMS and were the first North American company ever to go live on it because it wasn't already complex enough. And then all the integrators, GT Nexus, GXS, BillTrust, Avalara, all to help us communicate seamlessly, effectively, and efficiently with our customers and with our vendors. I can confirm that I am also proudly able to name many, many three-letter IT acronyms, and I am happy to be tested on my knowledge later. So here we are. Now we've identified the 14 systems that we need. The next question is, how are we going to get our shoes to customers? This is really a two-part answer. The first part being, how do we get our shoes from origin to the US? And the big bang scheme of things, this is a relatively big, easy button. Adidas had this licked. They really knew best practice on how to expedite shoes from origin to the US. So for the most part, we leveraged that knowledge. We took a leaf out of their book. We took some of their vendors and we modified the contracts to work better for us at Rockport. In other areas, we ran full RFP processes. So we ran full RFP processes for our transportation contracts, origin management system, freight forward contracts. But in other areas, we took a hybrid approach. And GT Nexus is the perfect example of that. Adidas already had a pretty robust way of dealing with, utilizing GT Nexus. We wanted to enhance on that. We use GT Nexus for all of our communication with our factories. Everything from PO placement to shipment confirmation, pack planning. We use it for everything. Where we enhanced it and where we felt like it would be better for us at Rockport is we used it also to create invoices, the system we use to match to POs, and then also to approve for payment. Once those invoices are approved for payment, the factories get automatically paid. The reason that we did that and we enhanced on the functionality was really to reduce the manual work and also to place the onus back on the factory to resolve any discrepancies that we had. thereby putting it back with them. If they didn't solve them, they didn't get paid. So here we are, we have our 14 new systems identified. We now know how we're going to get shoes from origin into the US. Now we've got to work out how we're going to physically get them to the customer. There wasn't an easy button with this one, and I looked really, really hard for it, trust me. The first question was, do we build our own distribution center, or do we outsource to a third-party distribution provider? We quickly realized with 10 to 11 months to go, we had to go to the outsource route. So we spent the time and formulated an RFP process and sent it out to the top 10 third-party distribution providers in our industry. We also provided them with a network study, which is what you can see behind me, to help them understand our business better. And what was interesting about the way in which we did this RFP process is that we allowed the respondents to propose options on where our distribution center should be placed based on all the information that we gave them. And also whether or not we needed 1 or 2 distribution centers, with the second one being in Canada. We provided them with all that information, and unsurprisingly, the results were pretty consistent. Almost all recommended that we needed 2 distribution centers, with the largest US one being based on the West Coast. All the responses were received in January, so our timeline is still really tight. We're going live October 3rd, 2016. Because of that, some of the companies actually declined to respond to the RFP. And price, service, and experience, as well as the ability to hit the timeline, reduced the field from the original 10 down to 5. We visited all the top 5, and through that process, 2 more dropped out when they realized they couldn't guarantee to have the buildings ready in order to hit the deadline. Again, we used price, service, and experience, and the ability to meet the deadline to pick our provider. So here we are, 14 new systems identified. We know how we're going to operate them. We know how we're getting our goods to the warehouse. Sorry, goods to origin. We know how we're getting our goods from our warehouse to our customers. And by the way, that's an actual picture just before go live of our distribution center. Our CFO is very happy that we have that many shoes. Now what we need is people. But how many people? As part of the transaction, we were really lucky that 120 dedicated Rockport staff chose to come over to the new entity and leave Adidas. So we already had a huge amount of expertise, but we were also taking on 5 shared service centers, so we knew we needed more. So we did some studies on transactions. How many invoices do we process? How many shoes? How many customers do we have? How many containers do we bring in per year? To try and understand how many people we would need in those shared services. The second part of the challenge was selling that vision to people so that they understood that when they came in, not only did they have to do their job for the next 2 years, but they also had to help us implement 14 brand new systems. As I mentioned earlier, some of them being brand new. So we knew that in trying to hire 80 new people, we weren't going to get people with experience in our systems, particularly because one of them had never actually been implemented before. So we looked for adaptability, flexibility as attributes in people, and those that had been through change before, and those that looked excited by the challenge and not frightened. Not crying at your interview was a good start. Essentially, we were trying to create our own synchronized triple Lutz team who could stick the landing ceremoniously, beautifully, and in sync. So we weren't asking for too much, I don't think. So here we are, 14 new contracts. Sorry, 14 new IT systems. Contracts to get the goods from origin. We've got our warehouse arranged now to get our shoes to customers, and now we've found some people to help us along the way. So how did we actually do it? The transition project was named Project Breakaway for very obvious reasons. And quick story, the bouncy ball you see behind me was actually a stress ball that we gave to everybody at the kickoff project. There are none left intact in the building at this point. For the most part, we ran this as a giant traditional project that had projects in and of itself, with the biggest challenge being managing the interdependencies. The two biggest interdependent projects were the IT systems and bringing up the distribution centers. The teams went through a huge amount of challenge on a daily basis, trying to keep both projects on track so they didn't affect the critical path of one another and the overall project. One quick story for you, and I seem to say one quick story a lot, so I'm sorry about that. Quick story for you. So on my first day, the IT team reliably informed me the decision had already been taken to move 2 million pairs of shoes at the same time as going live on 14 new systems. So once they had picked me back off the floor, I explained to them the level of risk that that created for the overall success and somewhat viability of the company, and that we needed to really look for a plan B to de-risk that project. So we pulled together a team and came up with a plan B. We were very fortunate in that Adidas agreed to allow us to build an interface from our brand new Rockport SAP system into their existing WMS system of our largest warehouse, therefore allowing us to continue shipping post-go live. In fact, we only moved out of that warehouse about 3 weeks ago, so we continue to ship for the last 9 months out of that warehouse. As you can imagine, part of this project has a very rigid cadence on each of the projects and the overall project of no-go decision points to hit the overall target. This is where I'm going to get confused because it looks like there's going to be jumpy things on here, so apologies for this one. As you can imagine, at the beginning, the go, no-go decisions are pretty easy. Complexity is relatively low, the projects are on target, and you're dealing an awful lot with theory and not so much with reality. But as you move throughout the process, frankly, that reverses, and you're dealing with a ton of reality, and theory at that point becomes largely irrelevant. At the 8 weeks to go part, we moved from our perfect theory to a managed risk-reward activity. We had to start framing decisions in the context of what could we and our customers live with. Perfect example of this is EDI. So in an ideal world, we were building all of our EDI maps with our customers, regardless whether they had orders in the system or not. At the 8 weeks to go part, we realized we didn't have enough time to build every single one of them. So started prioritizing those customers that already had orders in the system to make sure we could service them first post go live. At the 4 weeks to go part, when we were just about to start our cutover activities, we had to call an emergency meeting to discuss how ready or not, with the emphasis on not, our distribution center was. Goods were already being received, all of the interfaces were built, but they were really behind with testing and training. At that point, it was too late for a no-go decision. So we modified the first 4 weeks of outbound to help them succeed. We held hands and crossed our fingers, and we prayed dearly to the shipping gods, and we went live. Our D-Day had arrived. October 3rd, 2016 was here. Quick story. I did warn you I'd say that a few times. The board that you see behind me was actually a 6-foot by 3-foot board that sat outside my office and counted down every single day to go live. And there were days where I would come into the office and I would see it, and I would be so ridiculously excited about where we were and what we had achieved and how hard all of this team were working. And then there would be other days where I would come in and it would be not so much. So what happened on that day? We went live at 9 o'clock in the morning, and controlled resumption started. We sent our first picks down to the warehouse, and they came right back. They couldn't see any of the information. So we fixed it, we reset, and we sent them back down again. Again, we hit another problem. The labels wouldn't print. So they sent them back again. We fixed it, we sent them back down again, hoping for a third time lucky. And they shipped. On that day, we shipped our very first shoes. We continued like that for a number of days as we slowly bought up every functional area throughout the controlled resumption and began trading as Rockport on our own systems, in our own company, and in our own distribution center with our own staff. Was it bumpy? Yes. Did people cry? Yes. Were there nights we didn't make it home? Yes, there were. But did we make it? Yes, we did. The first 3 months were incredibly challenging. We really struggled to provide the level of service that had become synonymous with the Rockport brand. The next 3 months were a little less challenging. And as I stand here today, 9 months post go live, I can confirm that there was light at the end of the tunnel. But just when you think it's safe to get back in the water, I'm going to remind you that we're only actually talking about North America. We have 5 more countries to go in the global rollout, 3 more distribution centers to transition, 5 more offices to move into, and another 80 staff to find. Our next go live is on August 1st. And I also forgot to mention my favorite project. 6 weeks post go live, we moved 220 employees into our brand new global headquarters in Newton, Massachusetts. 72,000 square feet of all Rockport, and it's a gorgeous space, although I would say that. So to end this epic Big Bang tale, I'm going to leave you with some do's and don'ts. Obviously, don't do that. Don't be delusional. You'll want to hit every timeline. You won't. So be prepared to be flexible. Also, don't think it's going to work first time. But don't give up. Be relentless. I honestly think, in my humble opinion, that being relentless in a project as large as this is critical to the success of the project. I'm so fortunate to work with an amazing team of people that no matter what, never once gave up. They had great attitudes. Their work ethic was exemplary, and I'm so proud to work alongside them every single day. Don't delay in picking your transition partners. We did delay, and therefore the facility wasn't ready in time. We wouldn't have been able to change the go live date, but we would have known sooner that there was a problem, and we could have managed the expectations of the team better. Pick your 3PL distribution partners carefully. Use experts to help you validate and run your RFP process for you. We didn't do that. We ran it in-house, and it was a huge learning for us for next time. And don't procrastinate. Make decisions in a timely manner. They won't all be the right ones, and that's okay. But analysis paralysis will kill your timeline. And lastly, some do's. Plan, 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 and then plan some more. Know where you are. Understand how you're going to get to where you need to be, and what you're going to do when plan A, B, C, D, E, F fail. Over-communicate. Where you are in the process, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We spent a lot of time on this. We introduced something called 1220s, which was 1,222nd update of exactly where we were in the project. Now, these were done by everybody from the CEO all the way through to people who were responsible for the functional leads of the POS project. It was important to us that all the staff understood some of the sacrifices that some of the wider team were making in order to make this transition happen for us. We also, post-go live, sent out daily emails. Sometimes they weren't well received because they didn't like the fact that we weren't fixing things fast enough or that things continually kept breaking. But it was still important that people understood where we were. Change management, a huge topic, and don't worry, I'm not going to go into it in a great amount of detail. Only to say that it doesn't matter how good your transition is, and it doesn't matter how good your IT systems are. If you've not brought your staff alongside with you, you're going to fail anyway. So make sure you understand where you are and where you want to go. Change is an ever-evolving process, and something that we work hard at every single day. Overhire. Don't overwork your team. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You need everyone to get to the end. And consultants. Don't be afraid to hire consultants. Don't see them as the expensive option. See them as concentrated experts. The CFO likes to remind me every day at this point that Rockport's fully compliant in the No Consultant Left Behind program. I'm not 100% sure what he's trying to tell me there. So I have one last thing to say to you all, and that's keep calm and carry on shipping. Thank you all so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.